What's up, guys? I'm excited because we're talking about what I've been reading.
Yes, and he's been reading a lot.
I have been reading a lot.
I don't know any of this, so I'm merely here to ask a few questions to, heighten the review. But otherwise, Michael's going to show you some Chinese novels. Do you know how many you're going to be sharing with us today?
I'll probably go with 3, but let me actually try to remember the pitches for these. Because I have the plot memorized, but I'm gonna go. Okay, yeah.
You know, when you read a few thousand chapters, it's kind of hard to keep the story straight.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I do know that we have, I think, all fantasy, correct? Or no, one sci-fi.
One sci-fi, and one sci-fi, 2 fantasy.
Okay. Well, let's get started, man.
So I'll start with the sci-fi one. I'll read out the synopsis and then give you kind of a pitch or kind of a summary. To save his terminally ill sister, this guy, Ling Chen, I can't say the names, entered a newly released VR game, joined a gaming studio, an ancient evil item is found, and he has to help forge this complete item and become an unsurpassable legend and a destiny that is punished by the heavens.
It's always punished by the heavens.
It is always punished by the heavens. It's always like breaking the will of the heavens, or I don't know. So this one is called Asura's Wrath.
Really close to Asura's Wrath, the game.
Yeah, I don't know. It may be the same. I can't pronounce things. So what's interesting about this one? So if you know Sword Art Online or Log Horizon, it's kind of a similar-ish concept, but the main difference is the world economy and warfare is kind of run based on your ability in the game. So, for example, they would have a guild war. So, if you're playing World of Warcraft or whatever, you have wars between guilds, and whoever won, if China beat the U.S. in the video game, then they'd have to bring concessions because then the Chinese won the war. So it's it's in the future so much that that wars are fought in the VR world, and the games changed every 10 years.
That's really scary because of how real that possibility could be.
Yeah. So another interesting thing is there's one disease that has 100% death rate, and basically the guy gets a cure, and this is kind of spoilery, but he gets a cure for his little sister, and then that's why he joins the game to help the guild. Political reasons behind that, but we just learned recently that the cure is actually poison, and the reason it cures is because it's so strong that even the disease is scared of the poison. So we don't know what's going to happen to his sister.
A sentient
and
disease, huh?
Then it also gives is it a VR game or is it a parallel universe? So it also gives kind of that vibes, because you feel he gets his soul trapped by the game, trying to take over his soul, but he's so strong that he takes over the item instead. But it does make it seem like this VR world is more than just a game.
So obviously this is different than a lot of stuff the Japanese do with their stories and whatnot. But is this kind of similar to kind of the themes that are touched on to Overlord, where it has a political one to this? Is more
it is more more directly video gamey as far as a guild and leveling up, and creatures have levels, and unlike Overlord, there's a ton of players and a lot of NPCs, so you kind of have to deal with all that. And but yeah, so it'd be more closely to Sword Art Online, but the characters are super nice. I think the reason I haven't been able to finish it and kind of been forward is just because I'm kind of sick of that genre in general. But it does have some nice innovations, and it does have video game elements, so when you're into video games, it's a really nice sci-fi series, and it's pretty cool. You find out your main character is basically an assassin in the real world too, and he's if you're familiar
helps.
If you're familiar with the Halo backstory, that's pretty much his backstory. Is he was tortured as a kid and to become an ultimate killer kind of thing. So
you can be as deadly in the virtual world as you are in the real world.
That's true. That's true.
So that's number 1. That sounds pretty interesting. Actually, Michael has told me a bit about all of these series before, and it's they do sound super interesting to me. It's just that you actually can read all of these for free. How long are each of the series? Because I know they like keep translating them like sometimes every day or every week or every month.
So I think Shura's Wrath is completed, and it's 850 chapters. That's probably about 1,000 pages. The chapters can be like 1 to 2 pages. It is a lot, but it is free, so you don't really have to worry about paying for any of these series.
Cool.
So the next one I'll actually reference to. So these, I don't know if you've seen the previous videos, but they're cultivation novels, so it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different fantasy genre, so really you could just look it up. The category is called, in Chinese, Xinxia. I don't know, Xianxia.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, So this one is a supreme expert in the immortal world has died. Strain of his soul returns to his original body on Earth. Discovers that even though 10,000 years have passed in the immortal world, only a single year has passed on Earth, and he must deal with the situation and the side effects of his betrayal in the immortal world. So this is returning from the immortal world. I won't go into too much detail, and then I'll cover, because that's pretty much, it's interesting because you have the modern world and the immortal world, and him trying to discover how to get back into the immortal world.
Why does that give me like John Carter vibes? A little bit, because time different. I always do appreciate that, because like, does that one bounce? I mean, I guess you just said that it does deal with both, but is it more of his? Is it going parallel, or is it parallel to present day in both worlds, or is it like, hey, it kind of does flashback telling of him in the one world and then him going to the other world?
It's mainly just on Earth. Because you learn like his betrayal in the immortal world, and then obviously once he gets closer from transitioning to Earth to the immortal world, you get more, and you'll probably get more backstory along the way.
Yeah.
That one is pretty long. I haven't finished that one. Again, I think my problem with that particular one was that his leveling up was really slow, so it was like sometimes it was a little bit too boring, a little bit too much.
And is that one actually longer than the other series you just
yeah. Wow. Let me go and see how long it is. This one's not done, that's right. I think it's 2,000 chapters, but only...
Holy crap, it's 2,000 chapters?
But only 1,100 are actually there, so... Wow. Again, that's probably like 1,500 to 2,000 pages. It depends. It's a lot of reading. So then I'll get to the most recent one. So this video is not 35 minutes. This one is historical. I'll explain the pitch because I've been reading this, so I don't need to read the description here. So your main character, he is from modern world. I think he's like an architect or an engineer. And he dies, reincarnates into a medieval world. And it's pretty similar to like Europe in the Middle Ages, except they're witches. And these witches have unique magical power. So, one of them's fire, one of them's ice. You got some that are like they can control plants. You got some that like have the power of electricity. Some that can fly, transform into like birds.
Standard witches stuff.
Yeah, standard witch stuff. The good old Catholic Church is like we can't stand for these witches. They're elements of the devil, blah, 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 we gotta kill them all. And this guy's like, nah, man, they're just like humans. So, he is, at the beginning, he's in a power struggle as he's the prince. He reincarnates as the prince of the kingdom, and he has to, like, rule over this land to try to, whoever rules over the land the best out of the 5 siblings gets to be the king. At least that's the beginning premise. Anyway, I like this one a lot, is he brings his modern knowledge into the world. And not only does he do it in a way like strategy and politics and democracy, etc., which we're working on, it's still a dictatorship, but it's fine, he's the king, it's cool. He also brings in technology. So it's really cool to see like flintlock pistols can't talk versus knights, and then you got like artillery versus knights, and then most recently he's got like mortars versus knights. And
is it more interesting than knight fights though?
It's up there, to be honest. But yeah, so that's always something that I've really enjoyed. I don't know why I like that, but I really like, modern weapons versus medieval and how that would like change the power balance. So it is really cool how he goes and like makes inventions, first finding out of gunpowder, then refining that, and like right now he's working on like oil and trying to like refine oil to try to make vehicles, and then, So
I think those are like the most interesting fantasy stories because it's in a fantasy world, so like it can start off as a traditional fantasy, but it can really blossom into something else or like a blending of genres when it has that wrench thrown in there.
And then this is a
No pun
little,
intended.
wrench.
Yeah.
It is a little spoilery, but usually in this series, it's like the conflict with the Catholic Church. They're like the main baddie, and that's what I thought coming into it. But this I think is like 1,500 to 1,700 chapters, and I'm about 800 in, and the church has already been defeated. So you have like a more general circumstances, like the church was being terrible people because they were trying to do this. So now we have to deal with this threat. Otherwise, we're all going to die. So I really like how they transitioned from one threat to another threat. It made sense, and it makes all the preparations not only fun to see, but also interesting as well. And then you have one character that I really love their ability. I was telling Josh about this, that you fight in like a dream world. Yeah. So like you use your mental power to like spawn in items to help you, and every time you die, you lose a little bit of your mental power before they take over the world, or they kill you and then take over all your memories. So that final fight, which I will not spoil, but that fight and how the main character wins, it's like, that's so creative. So I really I like it. Similar to like Arthur or in other series, that the power and abilities allow the person to like explore modern equipment in this world and like how it affects general society. And I really like that slow climb to industrialization. I think it's really fun.
So I am curious because you brought it up, and I was actually going to ask the question, so I'm glad you decided to bring it up before I even asked it. But when you're talking about the premise and how it kind of starts off as, I guess, some of a quote unquote simple premise, like in terms of like where the end goal or where you think the end goal is going to be, when it moves past that point, does it expand on that traditional or like similar initial plot point, or is it kind of expand to something else entirely?
So something that I like about this is you think, okay, I got it, dude. It's a world it's Europe with witches. Okay, we're good. That's all we need. But like, there's always mysteries in the universe that you don't know. Like, you don't know. You learn more about like what are the forces they're fighting and like what's happening. And even at this point, you're like still a little confused, which is good. You know, you don't have all the answers as to why these two forces are fighting and who's like the god behind everything, and why is it like this. So you still have a lot of questions. And one thing that I really like, which I think a lot of authors don't do, I don't know if this is like a Chinese thing or maybe just this author's good at it, is usually when you like in Overlord or other novels, if you go to a different perspective, so if you look at a character, usually they're going to be safe or they're going to like turn around. But in this one, it's like, nah, these characters, you can like focus on a character and like what their backstory is and like where they're coming from, and they can just be killed like the next minute. And that's kind of that's I think nice to see that kind of diversity, so it's not the plot isn't predictable even when you're seeing new characters. So
is that something where it's like where it's some of these series, or at least the ones that you mentioned, have more like an ensemble cast in a sense, or is it just that like it's kind of like what we've been seeing in some of the recent volumes of Damashi, or like you see in like One Punch, where they introduce like a villain and they give them this like super big backstory, and then obviously not in the same manner, like they don't have to be killed off like super easy or anything like that, but just seeing more of an insight, even though it may not matter in the long run.
I think it's more of an ensemble. I think they're always building up, like, he has a city hall, so he has, like, officials like agriculture and war and education and all these officials that are, like, under him, so they all get flushed out. And he also has, like, interesting characters, like, you have, like, one guy who's, like, a really good sniper. He's a sniper, but he's also, they have bolt action rifles. It's pretty
nice.
hype. He's a sniper, but he's also, like, learning about like the main character's viewpoint and trying to follow that in the army. And then you have some other characters as well. And then obviously the witches are really great. Their powers and their back, like one of the best ones is she can go invisible and she can like walk around in the void. So she can like I don't know, it's kind of a weird power to explain. but like she can like disappear and like go into the void and then transport somewhere else and then exit the void and kill you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool ability as well.
Interesting. So before we go, because we'll probably finish this episode, it's not too long, but if you had a rating for just or like an impression for each one of them so far out of what you read, what would you get them?
So it's kind of hard to give a rating, but I'll just say like which one you should read based on what your preferences are. Okay. So Shura's Wrath, I guess that's how you say it.
Yep. So, I'm not Chinese though. So.
If you're interested by the premise and you think you like the video game VR Log Horizon Sword Art Online kind of formula, I think that's something you could start reading. It's pretty interesting, and I think it's pretty accessible as well, and I like the world.
You said that one's already done, technically, so I mean, you could get through that all through it if you really wanted to.
Return from the Immortal World, that one's not done. Still pretty good, though. That one, I think, is a bigger commitment, not only because it's more chapters, but it's like a lot. So I'd probably get more into this cultivation genre before I picked that one. That probably wouldn't be my first one. And then with Release That Witch, I really like the premise. I don't know, it's just like me personally that I love the premise. But it's really fun to see, like crop rotation in the Middle Ages. We got them, boys. Freaking George Washington Carver.
Those crops are crucial, man.
Exactly. We got potatoes. We got sugarcane. It's the key.
We don't have clean food. It'd be the end of us all.
Exactly. They got disinfectants. Anyway.
Or immunizations, as we read it.
As we've seen, immunizations.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that one, I think, if the premise really hits you, I'd really recommend that one. I think that's the most well-written one. You got a great cast of characters, and it's also very suspenseful with the action and the mystery. So, Release That Witch, and if you look it up on YouTube, that one's available in audiobook. I think the other ones are as well if you want to listen to it. But that is like a 1,000-hour experience. No, it's probably like 200 to 300 hours if you read it and listen to it on audiobook because they're slow. So.
All right, cool. Well, we'll be if I can, we'll see if we can grab those links and then we'll put them either in the comment section, like pinned, or we'll put them in the description. As also, I'm going to link the video of the other cultivation or like Chinese novels that we've been talking about, or I guess I should say Michael's been talking about because he's been able to read them super fast. I personally find a lot of those interesting, so hopefully I can dive into them as well. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll do.
One day we'll be together.
We'll do like 1,000 chapter per video review. That's
a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Anyway, guys, that'll conclude this video, and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.